Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I'm on a roll this month. I'm having actual guests, and you're not just listening to the mumblings of Midge. So, that's pretty cool for you guys. And I do have another guest that I'm so excited about. Again, one of my listeners tagged me and said, hey, we need to get this guy on the show. And so, surprise, Daniel Blevins is here today in the Gay with God house. And he is the founder and president of Stand in Pride, a nonprofit and mobile app connecting LGBTQ plus people with chosen family for emotional support or to physically stand in at events such as weddings or graduations. And I'm so excited to have you here, Daniel, because what you do and what all of the volunteers do to help our community feel like everybody else at a wedding, that, if you don't have a mama, we'll get you a mama. If you don't have a daddy to walk you down, we'll get you a daddy. So tell me your story. How did you begin? And then definitely we want to hear more about Stand in Pride.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. My story is, I guess, typical Southern gay. I was born and raised here in East Tennessee, just outside of Knoxville. I grew up in the evangelical church. One of my earliest memories of knowing I was different. I think I was in first grade. I had my first crush on a boy.
Wow.
I didn't know what it was. I just knew, looking back, I pieced it all together. But growing up in the evangelical church, I didn't know it was an option for me to be different. So I grew up, got married right out of high school to a woman. We were married 5 years, had 2 children. The marriage fell apart. And I knew it was time for me to be myself, but I had my kids to consider. So I met my now husband back then. We've been together for 26 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So we just kind of kept it on the down low until the kids got older. And then the year after my youngest got married, we got married.
Aww.
And through that process, just after that, I started creating content on TikTok and was contacted by all these young people. It's like, I wish I had a dad like you, and your kids are so lucky. And we were watching TV and saw Sarah Cunningham on, I think she was on 60 Minutes or something. And I knew Free Mom Hugs, but I didn't know her story. And so that inspired me to make a video. And I'm like, I love that she is, offering to be at queer people's weddings. And I would love to do that as a dad, because I had just walked my daughter down the aisle. Aww. So I was like, I'm going to make a video. And I posted a video to TikTok saying, if your parents won't come to your wedding, call me. I will be there, or I will find someone to be there for you. And the response to that video led to the creation of a Facebook group called Stand in Pride. And ironically, there wasn't a lot of wedding stuff. Like, people weren't getting married, but they were like, I would love to have a father figure. I miss having a mother in my life. And, I don't have anything special coming up. I would just like to have a mom to talk to. Or, to check on me and things like that. So that's kind of what Stand in Pride became. The wedding stuff gets the most attention, but we do way more than just weddings.
That is so beautiful. And the ache that I felt when you said, I would just want a mom to talk to. Yeah, I just want a dad in my life. And because some of us had a horrible way of getting through it, but afterwards the family stayed intact. It might not have always been happy to go in for the holiday things, but you
Yeah,
were allowed,
right,
even though tense. But for some folks, they just really never get to have that family again. And so you
right.
guys were able to do that. So how does that work? How does it work to get the volunteers and to find people in different locations? Because I don't know how big it is at this point, so you can talk to that about how big you've grown, but that's a lot to cover.
Yeah. Well, we moved away from Facebook because Facebook isn't always a safe platform for
Hmm.
people in our community. So we have our very own mobile app now, and
Hmm.
everything on the app is location based. So you download the app, you sign up, and typically most people will post an introduction post saying, "Hey, I'm here in your town if you're looking for support." And queer people looking for support will do the same thing, or they may just kind of read those other introductions and reach out privately.
Hmm.
That varies. We currently have over 150,000 users.
Wow.
Um, yeah, around the world. The app is available everywhere that it's legal. There are some countries where LGBTQ plus apps are not legal.
Right.
So we are available everywhere. So people are connecting. I have shared late last year, I got a bunch of comments from different people of, the different ways that people are connecting and the ways that they're standing in.
Hmm.
I've got one who just sent me a photo. She adopted um, a young trans man who just had a baby, and she is over the moon with
Aw.
this baby. She just sent me an update. Um, the baby's 3 months old, so I got
Oh.
pictures of the 3 month old, and it's so precious. And she is
Oh.
so excited, and he is so lucky to have the support system that he has now. And they were
Hmm.
there when the baby was born, so it's
Oh.
pretty amazing.
That is just beautiful. That is
Yeah,
beautiful. So I
yeah,
know I saw one video that you posted and you were talking about just how touched you were to have all of these people sending these messages to you, letting you know how valuable Stand in Pride has been to them. And it's like a life link and it's also a heart link, really, because you're healing hearts as much as you're providing a service and you're healing old wounds. And that's that's mission work. If we go back to our Southern pride, that's you're being missionaries out here in the
yeah.
world.
One of my favorite comments that I get pretty often is, "You are literally doing the Lord's work."
Well, you know what? I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that because we keep trying to tell people in the Gay with God house that God was not Christian. You know,
right.
Jesus was not Christian, but Jesus was love. And every time you're providing love into the world and you're meeting a need and healing hearts, I think that is the work of Jesus. And
Yes.
he was a cool prophet and I was raised Christian, so it's in my blood. I always tell people that I was raised Christian and I got a BA in bad theology from the Christian college that I went to. So what was that like for you to be raised in the evangelical church and then realize it first grade, your first crush? Good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Uh, how was that to navigate that with your family and with your friends and your church?
It was terrifying.
Mm,
That it was a lot of self-loathing,
mm,
self-doubt. I didn't even realize, and I've told this story a couple times, I didn't realize growing up that being gay was an option. I just
mhm,
thought there was something wrong with me based on
mhm,
all of, that I'd learned in church. And was basically told without them saying the words, find a nice woman, settle down and have kids, and it'll all work out. Well, it,
mhm,
it didn't.
mm-mm.
And I just hurt a lot of people in the process figuring out who I was. But it made life difficult. And that's one thing that my husband now, um, we made the decision when we got married to share that publicly because I I felt the need to be the person that I didn't have growing up. Like there was nobody in my community that was openly out.
Mm-hmm.
So it, I just think sometimes I think about how different my life would have been
Mm-hmm.
had I known that that was even possible. Because
Mm-hmm.
it sounds silly now, but I really did not know it was possible.
No,
Um,
no.
so it in some ways it stunted my growth. I feel like to grow, growing up in the church, and I have a lot of animosity
Mm-hmm.
for that, but I
Mm-hmm.
also have a lot of love
Mm-hmm.
because not all of them are bad. Some of them are good.
Yeah.
And I know some truly amazing people who consider themselves Christians. So um, I get a lot of flack here locally,
Mm.
making some content, about the hate that comes from Christians. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if that's not you, then I'm not talking about you. If
That's
you don't
exactly right.
agree with that, but some people, it's hard to swallow. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a business owner, so I've actually lost clients because of it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
I've told this a couple times that, when I was in the church and I started to realize that I was many years, I mean, I didn't come out until I was 30. So I was in graduate school, but when I was in church, of course, it was an abomination and we had no options.
right.
And I never could really date guys because of now I know why. Like,
Yeah,
I would go on a date, but it would only go so far. If as long as we were friendly, we were cool. But if you
yeah.
started anything hinky winky dinky, I would get literally physically sick. I'd have to end the
Oh,
date and then I wouldn't date them again. And so
yeah,
I had like no dates in high school. And even in college, when I did date my very best friend, it went fine because we were best friends and we were at a Christian school. Now, not
yeah,
that Christian school kids don't do other things, but we didn't. But but we didn't. And then we broke up, and he told me years later, he found me on Facebook, and I was saying all my college friends when they would write me and say, "Oh, let's connect," and I'm like, "Well, let me tell you."
yeah,
I need to tell you, number one, I'm gay. And if that's not okay with you, that's fine. Move on. Take your little friendship request away because that's who I am. Some people stayed, some people left quickly. Um, and so he comes on. So I gave him the whole little spiel. And he says, "Well, Midge, why do you think I broke up with you?" I said, "I have no idea. But the very next day, you had the skinniest girl on campus in your hand. So I don't have any idea. I have no idea." And he goes, "Well, it's because I was going to marry you. And we talked about that." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "But I couldn't marry you because I was gay." And I'm like,
oh,
"What?" And he said, "I would have married you because I didn't want to break your heart, but I knew that marrying you would have broke both of our hearts
yeah,
eventually." And he said, "So I didn't know how to tell you at college because we couldn't talk about stuff like that." And I said, "Well, you could have just said something
yeah.
other than it wasn't my weight." So all this, so now we're back at, now we're best friends again, and, and he's got his life and his man, and I've got my wife. So we're good.
Yeah, well, that's
But
good.
isn't that tragic that people have to be so secretive about who they are, and that you're right. It stunts our growth, and it also can completely derail who we were going to be,
Yeah,
and how we were going to get there because the shame of it is just so debilitating. For years, I mean, yeah, I'm 66 years old, and all of this Christian nationalism and all the rhetoric that's going on in the world today puts us right back into that place where we were still trying to find our truth.
absolutely. And I'm sorry, I got distracted by a cat.
I was going to say, which fur baby do you have in your
Yeah,
lap?
she, she's want me to pick her up, and I'm like, no, just wait.
Well, I wouldn't mind.
Okay, she's distracted now. She's gone.
Okay, that's funny.
That's something else about me, in case people want to know. My husband and I rescue cats.
Yay!
We take care of like 32 cats.
Wow.
I know.
32.
I don't have 32 in my house. Now let
Oh,
me
well.
clarify that. About 20 of them are still feral, but we TNR
Wow.
them, and
Uh-huh.
they know where their next meal's coming from.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, what he just said is tag and release. And so that helps you know that
Trap,
they're
trap,
trapped.
neuter. and
trapped, neutered, and
released.
released, and so
Yes.
they're fixed, and then they help people identify them as having been fixed so that nobody does it twice.
Right.
It's like I'm looking, I can't find.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're good people, Daniel. You're good
Thank
people.
you.
Yeah. So tell me more about I know it's an app that's across the world where it's allowed. So if somebody wants to sign up, if they want to be a part of that, do they just go on the app and say I'm available to help in this way or that way?
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's that simple. Yeah. Just
okay.
download the app. There is a verification process that you have to go through. There's a quiz at the beginning to see how much you know about the community,
Okay.
and just sign up. We also have, like I said, everything is location based, so you can set your distance from 100 miles up to 1,000.
Oh,
So,
wow.
because some people want to try, like, they're willing to travel.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also, we have groups on there too. So special interest groups. We've got
Mm-hmm.
crocheting,
Mm-hmm.
cooking groups, things like just other ways for people to connect
Mm-hmm.
on, hobbies, things that they like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's recovery groups for addiction, mental health groups, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And these are all user generated and ran groups, similar to Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Um, so people are connecting in those too, and just finding friends. It's a way to, share things that you love.
That is just an amazing creation. I just am so happy for you that, and I'm glad that people are signing up and getting something out of it. It's just, is there a fee for that for them to sign up with the app?
No, no,
Really?
the app is free. We do have a, which is optional, but you can purchase an ad-free version, so
Oh,
you
okay.
don't see any ads in your feed. But it's like $13 a year. It's pretty cheap, which helps us keep the app going because
Uh-huh.
this is expensive. It's
Mm,
very expensive. We're also a nonprofit.
okay.
We're formed in a nonprofit in 2024. This is the strangest journey that anybody could ever be on because I never set out to do this. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, thinking I'm going to make this video and it's going to be this and it's going to be,
Yeah.
I've just been drug along reluctantly sometimes because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm the glorified complaints department for people who are not happy that their app doesn't work like they want it to, and that can be a little heavy sometimes.
Yeah.
But the comments and the messages that I get of people who have found the support that they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
or have been able to support people
Mm-hmm.
makes up for any negativity that I experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's always going to be the, what do they, we call them the Karens of the world.
Yeah, the negative Nancy's.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's not working, of course, complain, but it's
Right.
how you let someone know there's a problem that is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, you have such a when you said that you've been drug along, it's like I understand that completely. It's almost like that, spirit says you're going in this direction, and you're like, mm-mm.
Yeah. I've tried to resist.
That's not me. That can't be me. Who else is in line behind me that you meant to be talking to?
Yeah. I'm a very big introvert.
Oh,
So for me, this doesn't bother me. Like I
okay.
wasn't nervous to talk to you or anything
Okay.
like that. But
Okay.
I've had, through the last 5 years, because Standing Pride is 5 years old now. Um, my first like big interview was for USA Today.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then the Today Show, the Rachel Ray Show, which isn't on anymore,
Yeah.
Good Morning America, the Washington Post. Those,
Wow.
like, I was ready to crawl out of my skin. I'm like, I did
Oh,
not sign up for this. I was
right.
so nervous. And somebody asked me one time, knowing now,
Mm-hmm.
would you have done it if you knew then what you know now? Would
Yeah.
you have still done it? And I was like, no, it would have terrified me. It would have terrified me just the thought of, speaking. Like I'm getting corporate speaking events, where they want
Oh,
me to do like Teams meeting and Zoom meeting, which is not bad because I'm behind my phone.
right.
In person, I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
make it work, but I never turned down an opportunity to talk about stand-up pride. That was a
Mm-hmm.
rule that I made a long time ago, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how uncomfortable it makes me, because you never know. In my mind, I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
this could be the one that reaches somebody who needs it, who didn't know we
Absolutely.
existed. So, however uncomfortable it makes me, I will survive. I'm a big boy.
Well, you're very engaging. I can tell you that. You're very
Well, thank
engaging
you.
and you're very clear about what you're saying and you do a really good job. And I know that Zoom is not as threatening as in person and with cameras and they get really close and that's
Yeah,
scary. But you're right. The even with my book and even with the show that I do that's not, as big as all these other shows, of course, but it has touched the person that needed it right then.
yeah.
And how they listened that day and whatever they heard, that's a God wink thing. That's not a Midge thing. It's not a Daniel thing. When you open yourself up and we get put in the place that we need to be for someone and sometimes for ourselves, but you're that's why I'm saying you are doing love work is what you're doing and you're putting other people's pain and what they may need in front of your own anxiety. And that's stellar now. That's great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's been the whole goal. Like
Yeah.
I want everybody who feels alone to know that they don't have to be. Now, if you're like me and you choose to be, that's different.
That's right. Yeah. For
Because I
those who
need my
like to be,
alone time.
that's right.
But if you want,
Yeah.
in whatever capacity, and that's the beautiful thing about the volunteers that come to Stand in Pride, they're willing to do whatever is
Mm-hmm.
needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the stand in for the trans man
Mm-hmm.
was a beautiful story, but the stories that I've heard, somebody was filling out college applications and a couple of moms jumped in to help them,
Oh,
and the things that we take for granted, because I do have a fairly supportive family.
okay.
They're still part of the church, so there are
Mm-hmm.
limits to their support,
Mm-hmm.
but we are not like estranged.
Mm-hmm.
But I still could depend on them if I needed something.
Right.
But just to imagine people who don't have anybody that they could
Right.
depend on to even, help them with anything in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had people, inspecting cars because they're making their first car purchase and
Mm,
talking them through the process of buying a house
mm,
because they don't have somebody in their life that can help them. So it's just
yeah.
incredible. And the weddings are a big deal.
Yes.
One of my favorite stories, I'm scrolling on Facebook a few years ago and I see this bride and a man with her. And so when I looked closer, it was from the UK group, and he
Oh.
was her stand-in dad. And I'm
Oh.
seeing this I'm like, oh my goodness, they're in the UK, and he's walking her down the aisle, and it still gives me
Oh.
chills
Oh yeah.
of just how I felt seeing that.
Mm.
And she had met him through one of our groups, and he's in a kilt walking her down the aisle, and it was just incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
So it's
Yeah,
truly worldwide.
that is great. And the person that I'm thinking about is in the UK and I know that's going to be you'll be probably getting a new volunteer very soon. That would be great. Well, I just, I think of all the times that, I the support that I had from my family was definitely tampered by their beliefs. But I do believe that if I'd actually needed something for sure, they would have been there.
Yeah.
Because we never did like lose contact. I became more distant for a while than they would have liked, probably. I think they kept trying to pull me back into the religious fold, and it's
Yeah.
like, um, but I just am so sad about the people who don't have like if I'm gonna need to get somebody to co-sign a car for me, not that volunteers maybe should do that. But,
Yeah, we're not doing that.
yeah, good. Yeah. I was like, I sure hope that it's not just an open blanket thing, but
No,
yeah,
no,
okay. There are
we do
limits, people.
limit,
There are
we
limits.
do limit it. We don't allow people to ask for money,
Right.
because we can't vet those needs,
No,
and
no.
that could quickly become a problem of taking advantage of volunteers. So we are careful
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. See, and that's why I know that this is a quality group because you have not only the questions up front to see who's coming in, but you also have those types of standards where, you're
Yeah,
protecting the people who are choosing to volunteer. Because, I would gather that some people that come on are not as healthy as others and
right,
are looking for something that is not appropriate. So,
right.
but for those of us that can volunteer, or for those of us who do understand what the limits are, this is a beautiful stand-up app. And
And just to interrupt, you bring up
yeah,
a good point there that I want to
yeah.
talk about too. Is one thing that I often tell volunteers, you don't get people coming online looking for family without some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They come with some baggage,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes mental health issues, sometimes an active addiction. So
Yes.
if you want to volunteer, you need to make sure you're in the right headspace
Mm-hmm.
for that because it
Mm-hmm.
can be heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are looking for support often are not looking for somebody to solve their problems. In most cases, they're just looking for somebody to listen. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to know that somebody cares.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a few that have contacted me, volunteers that are like, they're Mr. Fix It. And they're
Uh-huh.
like, I can't fix this part. It's like, we never ask
No,
you to fix them.
that's
They
right.
just want you to listen.
Be
So
present.
sometimes that can be overwhelming for
Mm-hmm.
volunteers because
Mm-hmm.
they weren't expecting how
Mm-hmm.
heavy it could be because you're going to hear traumatic stories of how
Mm-hmm.
badly these people were treated and
Mm-hmm.
may still be treated by
Mm-hmm.
their family and their loved ones. So
Mm-hmm.
I often try to bring that up because it can be surprising
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
when you're not expecting it.
Yeah. As a previous therapist, I know that reactive attachment order disorders are rampant in the LGBTQ community and in sexual traumas and all those things.
Yeah,
So, and then you sometimes will act that out on the figure that's in front of you. Like if you had daddy issues, you may put it out on a
right.
volunteer that's male. So, I like that you're sensitive to that and that you understand that and that you're giving them wage sage advice. Sage advice. That's good. That's good. I'm glad that this is available because when you and I were coming up, it was crickets, man.
It was. Yeah.
Nothing from the church was good. Nothing from families was good. It was just,
No. I grew up in, the late eight. I was born in 76. So, in my teenage years was the 90s, and everything then you heard about gay people was AIDS.
yes.
There was
Yeah.
nothing positive at
Yeah.
all. Um, I was very, living in rural East Tennessee, I was very far removed from that,
Mm-hmm.
but still it was very present in
Mm-hmm.
media. Unlike,
Mm-hmm.
there are positive stories in media today, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
We have social media, like what I do, can share positive stories, but back then there wasn't
Mm-mm.
anything positive about it.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Well, I didn't even have people don't remember that it wasn't that long ago that we didn't even have the internet when I was doing graduate school. I mean, we still do use the card catalog.
Yeah,
We couldn't go on and Google. There was no
right.
Google, you know.
No,
So it was really old school and there were no cell phones. You still had to look for, if you're traveling, you looked for one of those phones hanging on a cord. I mean,
yeah, a payphone,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So, right now, and that also surprises me too. So right now, there's so much information, and you can find anything you want or anybody you want to talk to online, and yet still the religious trauma that we went through and that kids are still going through now is so powerful. It doesn't matter how many good, glorious things are happening online. They're still dealing with their church, their small community, their bigoted parents or ununderstanding parents. They don't understand yet. And it's still the family, that family unit that you want to please. You don't care if everybody else's family likes gay people. You don't care that, Sarah's out there hugging people. We all care that Sarah does that. She's a wonderful
Right.
person. But we want our family to love us. We want our daddies to smile at us and be proud of us. We want that to be a relationship that we can build a relationship on later. And kids, even now, are struggling with that trauma that the right conservative evangelical, churches are still promoting and making it so toxic. And, even the regime that is in now wants us to leave and wants to
Right.
wipe us out along with anybody else who's not this one white Christian that they want to.
Yeah.
And here's the secret that they don't really understand. The people who really want it, they're not acting like that anyway. they have they have this utopia Christian, and all of them are on the outside bounds. They should be wiped out too.
Yeah. It just amazes me. I will say, though, I have been contacted over the past few years by a few, maybe three or four parents who have said, thank you for showing me what I was doing to my kid.
Oh.
I didn't realize the pain I was causing them and how much my deeply held beliefs
Mm-hmm.
were holding me back from truly being the parent that
Mm.
my kid deserves.
Oh.
Um, I know it's not always the case, but it does happen. It
Mm-hmm.
does. I just wish it would happen more
I
often.
know.
But I look at, like what's going on today with our government and with the Christian nationalism. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how is my life affecting you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like nobody can tell me
I,
how they are personally affected,
mm-hmm.
by the fact that I've been married, been with the same man for 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, in most cases, they don't even know me, but somehow they're
Right.
offended. that,
Yes.
it's like,
Because I
that
breathe.
makes no sense to
I
me.
know.
I don't understand it. But
Yeah.
when you start deconstructing, or as for me, I'm still, I teeter totter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I did another podcast with a pastor, and we were talking about our faith, and I was like, sometimes I don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I'm angry at him.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I want him to exist so I can be angry at him. And
Mm-hmm.
then some days I'm thankful for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm a mess. I'm all over
Mm-hmm.
the place. But just finding that balance, because once, like I started saying, once you started deconstructing, you start questioning these things. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that don't add up. That doesn't make any
Mm-hmm.
sense. Why would it be, why would, and that's how I really reconciled my faith is I don't want to, worship a God who created me and expected me to live miserably.
Right.
It's like, why would you make me this way if I wasn't meant to be this way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm like all over the place, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but it just depends on the day and my
Uh-huh.
mood.
Well, and that's what I was saying earlier, that we can be really solid in knowing that we were created by the God of our understanding and feeling really good about it, and knowing that
Yeah.
we have our own little mission field to help other people become compassionate and understanding. But then there are days it's like, well, who in the hell made God? And
Yeah.
how is that? The chicken and the egg, there's always an answer. It could be either way,
Right.
but there's an answer. And there's not an answer about the who made God. And
Right.
so then I'm like, well, and I'll throw that away. But then, also have a deep belief that even God could have decided to make the rocks clack together and create all of this really extensively, exquisitely beautiful and very unique people and all of the things that are in the world, that it had to take some intelligence, some pretty high
Right.
intelligence. And the evolution thing, just clack it together and we've morphed from a plant to a ape to this. No, I don't get, that doesn't make sense to me. So I do believe that there is a supreme energy. even though it just ticks the frick out of me that I don't know how, how this all just, I was here first. Why?
Yeah.
How does that happen? But anyway, but that's the thing that we have so many questions. And when we're bombarded, like if we're tired, that old addiction thing, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When we're at our least, we're at our most vulnerable, I guess I would say, that's when the questions become overwhelming. That's when the faith begins to chip away. When we see all of the horrific things going on with this regime and how people are so angry that we breathe.
Yeah.
I've never had you in my bedroom. I've never invited you to my house. You probably don't even know where I live, but you still hate me just because I'm not like you. And here's the biggest thing, because religious trauma is powerful because of fear. You
Right.
throw in burning to hell forever, the abomination of the Lord, and that scares children into believing so they don't go here, so I'll choose this.
Right.
And that is entrenched. Hitler used to say, if you give me a child from birth to 5, I will have them for the rest of their lives because those years are formative. How many of us were traumatized by some kind of God fire story when we were younger?
Hmm.
And it was told over and over and over. The last time that I went with my mother to a Mother's Day sermon, like a Mother's Day, whatever, um, the preacher actually started preaching from the pulpit on Mother's Day that if you're not a godly woman, you could raise a homosexual on
So now we're
Mother's
blaming mothers.
on Mother's Day.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I started to get up, and my mother put her hand down on my thigh and leaned in, and she said, I know you will never come back to church with me, but do not embarrass me on Mother's Day. So, so I sat there in that pew fuming. And
Yeah.
that was the last time I was in church with her. But, but that is such a toxic, fear is so toxic, and it gets into all of our fibers and then it lodges there. So we can be out and queer and happy and vibrant in our lives. And we can be taken back to that fear in an instant and that doubt, and it just takes back over.
Yeah.
So you're not
Yeah.
all over the place and you're not a mess. You're human.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You've
Well,
made
thank
it.
you. I feel better. I've been going through something like my family, just in the last year, my mom and sister especially have rediscovered Christianity, kind of.
Oh, uh,
Yeah, they're very heavily involved in church, and
uh,
like I said, you mentioned that you didn't come around as much as they would like for you to,
yeah,
and that's where we are now.
uh-huh, mm-hmm,
We were super close, and then I saw this transpiring, and I'm like,
uh-huh,
I'm not going to revisit that.
uh-huh.
So I just kind of, I still talk to my mom. I haven't talked to my sister in a while, but it's very triggering.
It is.
Them talking about church, and like my
Mm-hmm,
mom is inviting me to baptisms, and I'm like, Mom,
mm,
wait, who are you? So
mm-hmm, yeah,
it's difficult to balance that,
mm-hmm,
and I want to have, like, she's not open to the conversation, but I want to have the conversation because they don't realize how different they treat me.
yeah,
Um, I don't want to be the center of attention, but I want to be considered.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
absolutely.
Um, you know, we grew up, we were in church, but we weren't church. Like we
Okay.
weren't, it wasn't like that was her whole entire existence.
Mm-hmm,
It was, but now that's kind of where they've, like, the Christianity has really got their hooks into them, and
mm,
um, it's difficult.
mm-hmm,
Even at 50 years old, I'm just like, oh, I can't deal with it. So I have to keep my distance
yeah,
to for my own sanity.
mm-hmm,
And they think that, I'm being mean to them, but I'm like, y'all need to wake up and grab a mirror.
yeah.
'Cause because you're lucky that I'm staying away and not telling you what I think.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there were many times that I thought, I could have just walked away. They weren't
Mm,
necessarily pushing me away. It was more or less they were trying to drag me back and hold me in the house, forever
yeah.
until I got this nonsense out of my head. But and sometimes in my evolution, it was like I wished I had walked away and cut all ties so I would just be completely free of it. But now,
Mhm.
looking back, even though it was really super hard, I wouldn't now want to have lost all of the good times that we had. And there were good times when it wasn't, abusive like that, emotionally abusive, but it's it ebbs and flows. And
Right.
for me, I have a very religious sister, super religious. My brother wasn't so much. And when my wife and I had our first Holy Union before it was legal, he walked me down the aisle.
Oh,
Her daddy walked her, and then he went to the Baptist church and played
oh,
Jesus 3 years in a row. And there was something in that. And then he lost his mind.
yeah.
And I was excommunicated from his family for 7 years. I
Oh,
went to see my niece that was 2 months old, and then I wasn't safe to be around the children.
mm,
And so for 7 years, we had no discussions. And then one Christmas, we even had to just divvy up when we were going to go to see my mama for Christmas because he would not be there on the same day as me.
yeah.
And so one year it was snowing really, really badly, and we were trying to get in there, and we kept spinning, and we kept calling saying, "I think we need to turn around." No, no, you've got to come. My sister was dogmatic. You have got to come. And
Uh,
I didn't know why this was such a big deal. We finally made it. It took us hours, but we finally made it. And I went to walk in the house, and the door opened for me. Like as I was opening it, it just swung open, and there stood my brother. And I went, "This was supposed to be my day." He goes, "I know, we've been waiting for you." And he pulled me in and hugged me. And my first thought was, does he have a knife and he's going to stab me in the
yeah.
back?
Or is this an intervention?
I know, right? Oh my God. Oh, that would have been horrible. But and then we've rebuilt it. We are super close now, and I don't think he attends the Baptist church as much now, but I don't know. So if your family starts to go to a Baptist church, back away, back away. I know there are
They
some,
are.
but oh my God, I'm so
But yeah,
sorry. I'm
yeah,
so
they are.
sorry. I feel your
Yeah.
pain. But that's why we're such a mess sometimes, because
Mhm.
we have love and affection, but it takes only somebody going to church.
Yeah,
And they're back into all of that religious stigma and trauma, and it's horrible. It's
yeah.
horrible.
And that's one thing that frustrates me about it is I'm supposed to be tolerant of their
Ah,
religion. And I'm like, even with my mom, she will say little things sometimes,
hmm
um, and going to family dinners and things like that and having to sit through somebody saying grace. And
hmm
it's just so triggering. And I'm supposed to just accept that, but
Right.
they can't accept me.
Right.
Um,
Does your
my
husband go
husband
with
does,
you?
no,
Uh-huh.
no,
See, and that's
we
sad.
tried that years ago and
Yep.
he's like, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not going.
Yep.
You can go. Um, so no, and that's, the whole separation part there
hmm hmm
has always been frustrating for many years.
Absolutely.
And even, having conversations with my mom about it, I'm like, if he's not welcome, I don't feel welcome either.
hmm
And she's never said he wasn't welcome. So it
She
wasn't
doesn't
never like
have
that.
to.
Right. It's just, he wasn't raised in church. So that whole pageantry of it, he
Yep.
doesn't get it
Yep.
and will not tolerate it. He's
Yep.
not tolerant at all.
Yep.
The older I've gotten, I've learned that I'm not tolerant of it. Like, I don't want to be a part of it. I distrust openly Christian people
Yep.
who are so, everything's related back to their religion. In my experience, those are some of the most evil people
Mm.
who make that their whole
hmm
existence
hmm
because they're hiding up the evil. I think they're hiding the evil in their heart
Mm.
with always quoting scripture and everything. Every conversation relates back to God, and it's like you can be a follower, but I really think you meant for us to do our own thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly.
to be our own person.
Clearly. Clearly. And
Yeah,
I hear that. I've lost friends for being gay, and I lost friends when I went back to church
yeah,
just because they couldn't tolerate the fact that I was now a Christian. And I said I was
right,
always a Christian. I just now am choosing what church to go to
right.
that understands that I can, as a woman in church, I go to an Episcopal church, and we are all about inclusivity. And
Hmm.
you can be gay and be the bishop, a bishop in the church. Women can preach. We have women priests. We have all this stuff, and it's like not it, but you get a Southern Episcopal church, and you can have all this diversity, and then you can go, and it's still a Southern little church.
Yeah,
It's tampered down a little bit, but you can still we do have priests in Asheboro, North Carolina that are female that have come and served our church, and it's all fine. And me being gay and openly gay, very openly gay, because I made sure that I busted my gay right on out on day one. And if you're going to push me out today. Don't let me get
yeah,
comfortable and then push me out. So I'm very open at church, and I have been accepted by the largest core people of the group. There are still some of the old ones that this was their church even before they voted in gays, and they ain't leaving because it's their church, and we can stay, but they ain't gonna they're not gonna
yeah.
come to Pride Mass or nothing like that.
We
But
actually, I don't think we have an Episcopal church here, but we have a Presbyterian church.
yeah.
And there was a female pastor who I became friends with when she lived here. And they were very open and welcoming until she performed a same sex wedding. And they pushed her out.
Oh
They pushed her
no.
out of the church.
Yeah.
And it was devastating because she was a huge ally.
Yeah.
And that's how I came to know her. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so sad because any bit of hope that I had for this
Mm-hmm.
church
Yes.
and these people was gone.
Oh,
Um, and I think they lost a lot of members over that too,
I bet
because
so.
it just kind of split the church. But it was devastating,
Yeah.
and there's not a welcoming church within an hour's drive
Oh,
of
you
me.
see.
So church isn't even an option.
Yeah, I get that. And I do like the church that I'm at. We've gone through some changes, and it's made it less appealing, but yet I'm not going to drive, 30, 40, even 30, 40 minutes, because you can't really be an active member to
Right,
everything that goes on in a church if you're that far away. So it's either,
right,
stick through it, or, quit. Or I have live streamed. There was a former priest that did the afterword for my book, and it helped me reclaim that faith. And so I have live streamed him. There was another interim priest that we had that I got along with really well, and I might live stream her, and I still go to my church, but it just depends. But
yeah,
the thing is that, things like Stand in Pride and being able to have a talk show, or a podcast and getting the word out, we are reaching the people that are coming out of that religious trauma, and letting them know that we get to decide who God is for each of us.
right,
And we either, love them or hate them, however you want it.
yeah.
That energy that may or may not be male. I love The Shack. Did you ever see The Shack? And this is a movie, The Shack, and God was represented as a black female. And I'm like, that is
Ah,
I want that to
no, I
be
haven't
so
seen
true.
that.
Oh, it's a tragic little story that turns out somewhat good. But yeah, the God is a black female. Jesus is this carpenter dude that's really laid back and relaxed and cool. You would
Oh,
want to hang out with him all day long. And the
yeah,
spirit was this Asian, very ethereal. She was always very, just gorgeous for one, but also just what you would want the spirit to look like. And
yeah,
it was a really well done movie. But we get to decide for us.
right,
We don't know who made God. We don't even nobody's seen God. So you can make it up whatever you want. Just
right,
because he was called the Father, that's because it was patriarchal from way on back.
yeah,
And all the interpretations were done by males
right. Yeah,
who were very anal.
that was part of my deconstruction journey. The more I learned about the Bible,
Hmm.
the harder it is to believe. in that.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me personally, I do believe in a higher power. I just don't believe in the one that man created.
Right.
In the Bible.
Right. Right.
I find that I don't like the picking and choosing either. That's so frustrating to me. I'm a Libra, so everything has to be fair and balanced in my world. And the Bible just doesn't add up for me because it's not fair and balanced. It's the contradictory on every turn.
Bless my mama's heart. She used to always say, well, I just don't understand God, because you say that God gave us a choice. I said, God did give us a choice. Well, what kind of choice is that I either believe in God or I'm going to hell? What kind of choice is that?
Exactly.
Like, well, that makes a lot of sense, Mama.
Yeah.
I'm 10. I don't know how to answer this deep question.
Yeah. How's it free will if there's consequences?
I know, right? Right. It is a bag of mess, but I do believe that we find our way, and I do believe that we have always been in God's favor. However God created us or however we got here, that we are in God's favor, and that we are not an abomination, and that we do deserve all good things. And then people like Daniel bring stand-in pride to people so that you can have good dads and good moms show up for you, which is probably way better than the ones you would have had if you were allowed to have them, your original ones. So Daniel, I know we're ending up, but I have loved this conversation with you, and I love what you do and the light you put out in the world. You are just a gem, and I'm so, so happy that we've met.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation too.
Well, yay. Well, you always are welcome back. If you have something that you want to promote and you're excited about something, you always feel free to hit me up and we can have you back and we'll go deeper. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good.
So, guys, I thank Daniel, and I also thank you for sharing this podcast, supporting and subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Go to the Gay with God show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com to connect with Daniel. And check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly group entitled My Faith Journey. And this is a time to explore how you're doing in your faith and also just how you're doing in the world. And sometimes we just talk about nothing important at all, and we get along just fine. So make sure you answer all the questions at the Gay with God Facebook page, because that's how we stay safe, that I know who you are and why you're here, and I'll invite you inside. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you, even when you didn't know it. You have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.